Shalom, friends, and welcome back to this week's latest installation of a Bisseleh Torah. Nasso is the name of the parsha that we're reading this week. We are now well into the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. You know, each parsha has its own particular name, and the name does not necessarily describe the contents of that parsha. It's just simply the first word or the first meaningful word that opens up that Torah portion. And so, Nasso, being the name of this Torah reading, takes its name from one of the first words that appears at the beginning of the parsha. There is a conundrum in this week's reading that I would like to share with you. The laws of the Nazir are prominently displayed in this week's reading. A Nazir or a Nazirite is somebody that undertakes a vow of abstinence. They determine for themselves that they're not going to drink any wine, strong drink, they're not going to cut their hair, they're not going to come near the dead, they're not going to have relations. And a Nazir is translated as someone who is crowned. Simply using that word Nazir is an indication that such a person who takes upon themselves the vow of abstinence is to be feted, is someone to be applauded for their abstinence for the sake of getting proximate to God. And yet, at the same time, we're told that such a person who refrains from drinking wine is called a sinner. How do we rectify or find resolution to those two contradictory statements? We find at the same time that elsewhere in the readings of the rabbis, we find that a person who wants to get closer to God, who takes a vow of abstinence of anything, is to be applauded for their effort to get closer to God. And no less of a figure than Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is said to have said that any pleasure in the world that somebody denies of themselves is basically denying God. We've got these two contradictory statements running out here. Are we supposed to take vows of abstinence, of poverty, in order to afflict ourselves and get closer to God and be so rewarded by that? In fact, one of the rabbis says that somebody who takes a vow of abstinence like this is as high of a level as the Kohen Gadol himself. And yet at the other hand, the other extreme, we find that such a person is also called a sinner. How, again, do we reconcile those two diametrically opposed ideas? And I suspect it comes down to this. Not all of us are created in the same way. Not all of us need the same things. We need different things in order to complete our character, to make ourselves whole. Some people who are plagued by the Yetzer Hara, who are constantly nagged at to go in the wrong direction in life, to make the wrong choices. Not necessarily that they do make the wrong choices, but they're pulled to that direction. Such a person needs to take measures to control their appetite, to control their covetousness of trying to achieve and get things that they should not achieve nor get. And on the other hand, we've got people who are in control of themselves, who whet their appetite and don't always want for more, don't want to afflict others because of what they see that they have that they do not possess. So I think the resolution of the character of the Nazir is somebody who is struggling against their own inner desires to attain things, to get things for themselves that they know are wrong. And so they take this vow, and they are to be applauded for that, for their efforts in trying to master their impulses, their worst impulses. And for people who don't struggle with that, they have food, they're not going to overeat, they're not going to overindulge, they're not going to want to take things that do not belong to them. The character is basically one that is generally non-contentious and at ease. Such a person should partake of the things that God gave them and us to participate in. And one more thought. A Nazir is not a Nazir for life. We hope that the person who takes a vow of abstinence will clear their own conscience, will be able to ultimately control their own desires because of the 1 month or 1 year or 2 years of the vow that they've taken for themselves in order to streamline their own Yetzer Hara. So we should take from life what we are able to take from life without being priggish or piggish. And then those things where we need help, we should find the help. Whether that's in the comradeship of people who are very much like us, being part of a NA or AA, or just joining a group where we'll get positive reinforcement for the things that we've done, or at the extreme, following the indication of the Bible, becoming a Nazir for a specific period of time in order to control our lust. Shabbat Shalom.